Hello everyone, this is Tom Stanley and this is the Stanley Report. Today we are with Massachusetts Secretary of Veterans Services, Coleman Nee. Welcome, Coleman. Thank you for having us in your office today.
Thanks for coming over.
My cable show, we like to try to bring state government to the constituents in Waltham and Lincoln and let people know how their tax dollars are being spent. We'd like to highlight especially a lot of the great agencies and services that are being provided for people that deserve it, like veterans. Before we get into what the office provides, we're going to talk a little bit about your background. I know you served in the Marines in
Sure.
Desert Storm.
Correct. I was a Marine reservist. I was activated for Desert Storm and spent about 7 months on active duty.
Yeah. And when was what years was that?
1990 and 91.
Right, well, seems like a long time ago now, huh?
It seemed, yeah, I think I figured it out the other day. It's been 22 years.
Wow.
Since I actually was deployed 22 years ago.
That was the first war, right? First
Correct.
Iraq War. Yeah. You were nominated to be Secretary of Veteran Services by Governor Patrick.
Yep.
Back in 2008, I believe.
Actually, I was undersecretary. I was here for a few years as the undersecretary, and then when Secretary Kelly retired, the governor, asked me if I'd come on as secretary, and I was honored to do so.
Great. Could you talk a little bit about what the office does and the relationship between the agency at the state level and also the VSOs, as they're called, veteran service organizations out in the communities? And I know Waltham has a very well run office by Walter Hoyt.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if you could talk a little bit about the relationship you have with veterans.
Well, Massachusetts is very unique in the way in which we serve veterans. I mean, first off, we do lead the nation in veteran services and benefits, both from a fiscal and an outreach standpoint. We're also, the outcomes against issues like veterans homelessness, veteran suicide, reintegration of veterans from active duty service or deployment back into civilian life. Our programming is far and away better than most other states and is naturally a national model. From what we do here, our core benefit is dictated by Mass General Law, Chapter 115, and that was established sometime after, not too long after the end of the Civil War, and it ensured that every city or town would have a vet service officer, or a veterans agent as they used to be called, who would be responsible for both the veterans and dependents of those communities. Everything from financial services to help with medical assistance, to help with heating, housing, food, prescription drugs, also helping them to access VA benefits. Any veterans that felt like they were eligible for service-connected disabilities or VA medical care could see these folks as well, and can still today.
Right.
Our relationship with them is very close. We work, well, they don't work for DVS specifically, they work for their individual cities and towns. Again, DVS works to ensure, one, that the cities and towns are compliant. If your community is 12,000 people or over, you have to have a full-time vet service officer. We engage cities and towns all the time to make sure they're meeting their requirements under the law. When those veteran service officers do provide benefits to folks, they have those benefits come through this office. We will authorize that they were in fact valid expenditures, and then we reimburse the city and town up to 100% in some cases, but mostly 75% for any of the costs incurred by the local community in serving the veterans or dependents. So it's a very, very cooperative and cordial relationship and productive relationship, and I think, in many ways, having that presence in the local level of a vet service officer who's from that community and works in that community, one, helps us immensely with identifying veterans and dependents. Right. Number two, it also helps us cut down on instances of fraud or waste or abuse of the system because we have someone at the community who's monitoring it firsthand, and it puts a friendly, local face on these benefits. And frankly, some of the folks that come in there can be discussing things that are anywhere from embarrassing to very difficult to discuss, particularly if they're combat related.
Right. Yeah, and it's I know it's great to have that local presence. But of course, a lot of the veterans don't seek any benefits that they deserve, and I know that's part of what you've been trying to do is more outreach to let the veterans know about what's available to them, and I know and encouraging the local VSOs to do that as well. In the past few years in the legislature, you talked about how Massachusetts is probably maybe the best or one of the best as far as the states in treating its veterans, even though we need to do more. We passed legislation in the last few years. Could you talk a little bit about that legislation and the changes that took place?
Sure. So over the past couple of years, every session there's been some type of legislative package related to veterans. 3 years ago, I believe we had the Welcome Home 2 package that had passed. The year before that, we did some benefits changes, and then last year we did the Valor Act. And the Valor Act was probably the most comprehensive of all the veteran service legislation that had been veterans benefits legislation that's been proposed and passed, not just in Massachusetts, but I think nationwide. That did a number of things. It allowed Massachusetts to enter the military compact, inter-education military compact. It provided opportunities, or will provide opportunities for veterans potentially to take advantage of contracting opportunities with the Commonwealth. It established a Memorials Commission, which will look at the funding and upkeep of local town memorials for veterans, and hopefully, as we go forward, provide a mechanism by which communities can receive some state funds to keep up their individual community assets, such as war memorials. It looked at education and really made us have to go back and look at transferring military credits for education to both the higher ed system, as well as some workforce credits and some workforce certifications. And I know that the Department of Public Licensure and the Department of Public Health are looking at those issues as well. How can we take the military skills and the licensing and the training that you received in your military career and more easily translate that over to the public sector? It really was a comprehensive piece. It looked at our Gold Star families, and it extended our tax exemption for Gold Star spouses, someone whose spouse was killed in combat or died as a result of wounds received in combat, from a 5-year exemption to a lifetime exemption, provided they don't remarry again or move out of state. So there was a lot of concrete, significant benefits in that. Too often we see legislation in other states that passes where it's much more symbolic or ceremonial. But I'm proud of the Commonwealth, and I'm proud of the legislature and the governor's and lieutenant governor's efforts as well, because we've really worked cooperatively and together to pass some concrete and meaningful pieces of law and regulations that actually help people.
Great. Now, budget issues for this coming year. Have you given some? I'm sure you've given some thought about what's needed for veteran services. In the
Yeah,
next
we
fiscal
have,
budget?
and we've been. The governor released a budget last week, which was very good in terms of veteran services. We are one of the few state agencies to really not have to do deep cuts, even over the course of some very difficult fiscal times. In fact, there's been a number of instances where we've seen increases to our budget, both for our providers that are in the communities dealing with issues of counseling and homelessness and housing and reintegration and transportation for veterans, to medical appointments, to our own staff and our own outreach efforts in the area of suicide prevention amongst veterans, fighting veterans homelessness. Our Women's Veterans Network has seen an increase as well. Women are the fastest growing segment of our veterans population, so we feel that is important. And as we've moved forward with budget to budget, and again, we've been largely protected from the deep cuts that other human service agencies have had to take. We're conscious of the fact that every time we receive a level funded or an increase in our budget, that means another agency doesn't receive an increase, or that means another agency doesn't, may take a cut.
Right.
In order to offset that. So, we do feel that the governor's budget, as it was filed, is represents a good solid starting point. I'm sure there'll be debate and discussions in the legislature amongst that, but particularly on the areas of trying to identify new revenue sources for us so that we don't, at some point in time when those other needs become more pressing, transportation or education, that we don't have to, rob Peter to pay Paul in
Right.
order to do that and see a reduction in vet services. Hopefully we can, come up with ideas and strategies that will allow us to keep a balanced approach. The governor and lieutenant governor have as well as the new Secretary of Health and Human Services, John Polanowitz, have a deep love of the veteran population, and I think a deep appreciation for what these folks have been through, and want to make sure that those services are maintained.
Very good. I know we talked about in the past that we talked a little bit about it today, but all the resources that your office provides or can provide assistance for other veterans. And is there a place, website or what have you, that people at home could go to find out? I know I think there's even pamphlets that we could make available
Sure.
through my office or through Walter Hoyt's office.
Yeah, well, Walter's office would be the first personal step if you needed benefits or services. I mean, he would be the local face in
Right.
the community in which to schedule an appointment and talk to. But we have made a recognition, particularly over the last couple of years, that especially the younger generation of veterans coming back who are much more technological savvy, much more comfortable with web-based and internet-based interfaces for doing things and getting benefits and services and resources. As part of that, we collaborated with the Mass Broadband Initiative as well as the Home-Based program, and we developed what we think is a great model for the rest of the country. It's called massvetsadvisor.org. I'll say it again, massvetsadvisor.org. And that is a comprehensive web portal. Providing veterans benefits and services is not really so much a resource issue here in Massachusetts. There are a lot of resources, federal, state, local, nonprofit, all across the board. The challenge was really connecting people in an easy way to those. When we give benefits briefings to folks, it can almost feel like we've put a fire hose in your mouth and opened the valve. There's so many things coming at you, and it's difficult to determine what you need at the right time at the right place. So this web portal, massvetsadvisor.org, allows you to indicate your branch of service, when you served, if you're a family member, if you're a dependent, what specific benefit you're looking for. And then from a list of over almost 350 specific benefits and resources, it culls down the exact ones that would be pertinent to you, and gives you easy access to be able to take advantage of those. So.
And if you still need assistance, you can always go to your right directly through to your Veteran Service Organization in Waltham, Walter Hoyt in the Veterans Office, which they can sit down with you and just walk you through and see what's appropriate for each individual.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that we passed in the legislature in the last few years was a bill that would allow communities, municipalities to offer a volunteer tax work-off program. And as city councilor, I brought it forward with Waltham City Council Joe Giordano, who's a Vietnam vet. And we asked the city council to approve this, which they did, and I'm sure the mayor will approve it as well. But it will enable veterans to work on a voluntary basis for the city of Waltham and provide their skills in different areas, and work off up to $1,000 in property taxes. Now, it's not for everyone. Perhaps, especially some of the younger vets may be out working, one or two jobs or what have you. Hopefully they're out working and not looking for work. But for certain people, I think it's very beneficial and can really help to keep seniors and older veterans in their homes, which they grew up in. So we were just able to, I think we may have been the first community, or one of the first, perhaps of other communities to pass that, but we just actually last night passed that legislation. So.
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's, the idea itself is very interesting. I mean, a lot of our veterans, even our veterans who are retired, maybe a little older, 60 plus years of age. They have tremendous skills and tremendous benefits, not just from their experiences in the military, but from their life experiences afterwards. And for a lot of those folks, wanting to keep contributing is a huge desire.
Right.
I would say, the tax benefit is really nice. It gives them the ability to see a tangible, outcome from
Right.
what their from their efforts. But these are folks who, in many cases, in a lot of cases, either voluntarily or either through a draft or what have you, have gone into offices and swore to be part of something greater than themselves.
Right.
And
they'd do it
work
again.
hard. And they would do it again in a heartbeat.
Right.
And they're proud of their service. They're proud of the skills in which they accumulated and can share. And I'm sure a lot of people will take advantage of that,
Right.
particularly maybe disabled veterans
Right.
or retired veterans as well.
And again, they didn't go into the service to receive a benefit like that, but I think it's important for society to treat our veterans well, and for young people growing up to see that. And I would hope that would make them more willing to serve, or more willing to have the same position when they're older and in positions to make decisions to help veterans as well.
And to help the community. Yeah,
Right.
we know that veterans helping veterans is the number one thing that we can do. The peer outreach, whether it's from folks coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan today, we know that the peer outreach still to our Vietnam veterans coming back, particularly with our Vietnam veterans who came back to a country that didn't necessarily treat them the way it should have. And many of those folks walked away from the benefits and services that they were eligible for because of the way they were treated. We want them to come back into the fold now. They're at a particular point in their life right now where many of them need help with housing assistance, they need help with medical care, they need help with disabilities they may have incurred as a result of their service. And the best way to get them back is other Vietnam veterans who can credential, say, hey, it's a different system now, come on back in, they really do want to help you.
Right. Well, I can tell you, as I'm sure you know, in Waltham, the city of Waltham has a pretty good history of reaching out to veterans and trying to provide assistance and so forth. A proud history. A lot of good people, veterans, former elected city officials now, that are all trying to do the best that they can to recognize veterans' efforts and also make life a little bit easier. We covered a lot of ground today, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure to work with you.
And
Thank you.
this has been an issue of the Stanley Report, and hopefully right at the end of this program, you'll see more information about where to get the veteran resources information. So thank you again.